Microphones.
To order.
Mic check, mic check.
No, that's not true. It's all
Mic
over.
check, mic check.
That's not true.
Mic check.
No, that's your opinion. That's not.
Microphones are on now.
Well, that don't
They're
mean
on
you're right.
now.
You don't do it to me.
The microphones are on now.
Work here.
They're on.
I heard what you said. Only Riviera Beach. You shouldn't say that.
You don't know what that meant.
You're the chair. You shouldn't say that. I don't care. Don't criticize the city.
You don't know what my comment was relating to.
Only in Riviera Beach. That's what you said that this happened.
Point of order.
Well, I know that you. I
That's
know that
improper.
you're campaigning.
Well, disrespectful. This is your campaign motion. Shouldn't make those statements.
For the record, just as you said, no one can tell you how to speak and when to speak. You cannot censor me, Mr.
And you're not going to sit and talk about this city.
You don't know
And
what
you'll
my
be the
comment
chair.
was related
I've
to.
heard whatever's related to you.
does not
How
matter.
you going
Point of order.
and talk about the city? That's
No,
wrong.
don't try to.
Well, don't try to talk about campaign.
You are simply trying to
No,
misconstrue
no,
my
no, no.
comment when
You have
clearly
no
did
right
not
to
know
say
what
that.
it was.
That was very improper, in my opinion.
It's improper for you to come in and speak to me that way.
No, it's improper for you to say talk about the city. You be the
Mic
chair.
check, mic check.
Father God, in the name
In the name of Jesus, that's all praise.
I'd like to call this meeting to order. Thank you, sir. Walter, we're ready.
Mic check, mic check. Mic check. Mic check.
Let's just see the TV remote.
Mic check. No.
Hello.
Well, I hope it was on TV. Of course I did. That's right. I have my right to say whatever I want to say.
Test.
Testing.
Testing. Yeah, some of them are on.
Testing.
Regular City Council meeting of October 3rd, 2018 to order. Madam Clerk, roll call please.
Mayor Thomas Masters.
Gladly here.
Chairperson Tanya Davis Johnson.
Here.
Chair Pro Tem Lynn Hubbard.
Here.
Councilperson Kashamba Miller Anderson.
Present.
Councilperson Julia Botel.
Here.
Councilperson Terrence Davis. City Manager Karen Hoskins.
Here.
City Clerk Claudine Anthony is present. City Attorney Andrew DeGraffenwright.
Stand for a moment of silence, followed by a pledge of allegiance, led by Councilwoman Miller Anderson. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America. And to the republic for which it stands. One nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
For those of you who are in the audience, I would like to apologize for my outburst as it was not professional and that is certainly not my character. I do apologize for my outburst. We'll continue on with our meeting.
Madam Chair, I apologize for mine as well. Thank you. Yes.
Members of the public shall be given a total of 3 minutes to speak on all items listed on the consent agenda. Any person who would like to speak on the consent agenda, please fill out a public comment card located on the table directly outside of the council chambers and give it to the staff prior to the adoption of the agenda. Are there any additions, deletions, or substitutions, Madam Manager?
Yes, ma'am. Madam Chair, under public hearings, item number 9, we're deleting resolution number 109-18, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, approving a site plan application from Seven Kings Holdings to build and operate a 4,482 square foot restaurant on a vacant parcel of land approximately 0.35 acre, identified by parcel control number 56-43 -42-288-00-003-090, located on the north side of Blue Heron Boulevard and east of Lakeshore Drive within the downtown general zoning district. Also, under the regular agenda, item number 10, just wanted to remove the name of Chairperson Tanya Davis Johnson from this item, and this is resolution number 110-18, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, authorizing and directing the intervention into a lawsuit seeking a declaration that the provisions punishing elected officials set forth in section 790.33 Florida statutes for violating the preemption related to the regulation of firearms and ammunition are invalid, and providing an effective date. That's all I have, Chair.
Are there any other additions, deletions, or substitution from council or the mayor? Are there any disclosures by council?
Madam Chair,
Councilwoman Botel, you recognize?
I have been in conversation with Jamie Cole, who is an attorney with Weiss, Serota, Heflin, Cole, and Bierman on the lawsuit.
I'm so sorry, I cannot hear you.
I guess my mic is not on. There we go. I have been in conversation with Jamie Allen Cole, who is the attorney on this lawsuit.
Are there any other disclosures by council?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Mr. Mayor, you recognize?
Thank you. I've received several emails from residents of Marina Grande as relates to the upcoming discussion on the crab pot, and the emails that I have received have been pro and con. Thank you.
I too have, I believe that the full body of the council has received the same emails. We were all copied on them, so we can collectively disclose it.
But it's not on the
It's
agenda.
not on the agenda, but we did disclose. Motion to adopt the agenda, please.
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. It's been motioned and properly approved. Madam Clerk?
Councilperson Botel,
Yes.
Councilperson Miller Anderson,
Yes.
Pro Tem Hubbard,
Yes.
Chair Davis Johnson,
Yes.
unanimous vote.
Walter, cut up my microphone.
Walter, would you turn up the microphones on the dais, please? Consent agenda. All matters listed under this item are considered to be routine, and action will be taken by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a councilperson so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the general order of business and considered in its normal sequence on the agenda. Are there any items to be pulled from the agenda?
Madam Chair,
Councilwoman Miller Anderson, you recognize.
I'd just like to have 7 and 8 pull for just the presentation. For the public.
Well, when the item is called, it's something that I'm bringing forward that I plan to.
But it's on the consent, though.
All righty, 7 and 8. Are there any other items? Motion to approve the agenda, to approve the consent agenda with item 7 and item number 8 removed. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Madam Chair, we have one public comment card on the consent agenda. The acceptance of public comment cards for the consent agenda is now closed. Fane Losman.
Fane Losman, Singer Island. Florida State Senator Tom Lee, when this item came up, his comment was that he voted yes on the bill because it's going to make homes more affordable. We're going to allow people to move from rental units back into homes. And in doing so, it's going to give us the ability to generate revenue for dock stamps, the tangible tax, and a whole host of other things that go along with home ownership. So there's two sides to Amendment 1. And it comes back to a comment that was made by a council person at the last meeting when they raised the salaries 10% to have them in line with other communities, but our taxes are still higher than those other communities. You see what I'm saying? So from a tax perspective, it may, I don't know if it's going to have any kind of, there's a lot of fear factor. It's going to cut taxes, I don't know, hundreds of millions of dollars, but it's a wake-up call that people that want to own a home ownership will have a tax break. And it's up to the municipalities not to squander property tax dollars. So I mean, if you're a homeowner, you want to have your homestead increase. You don't want it to be decreased. And I agree with Tom. I think it's a positive, and I think it's going to pass in the state of Florida. And I don't know if it's really appropriate for elected officials to really be commenting or making resolutions relative to something involving the constituents' homeowners' taxes. Those are the taxes that pay your salaries for everybody sitting up there. And to try to have a direct impact on, we're going to have a resolution criticizing home ownership in Riviera Beach. I think that's improper. That should not be on the agenda, period.
Councilperson Botel? We're now voting.
Yes.
Councilperson Miller Anderson?
Yes.
Pro Tem Hubbard?
Yes.
Chair Davis Johnson?
Yes.
Unanimous vote. Item number 7, resolution number 107-18, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, concerning Amendment 1 to the Florida Constitution, which, if adopted, would create additional inequities in Florida's tax system by granting certain tax breaks to some taxpayers at the expense of other taxpayers and provide an effective date.
Is there a motion? So moved.
Second.
It's been motioned and properly second. Do you have any, well, there are no public comments. Awesome. I ask that this item come before the council as a result of participating in the Florida League of Cities, the Palm Beach County League of Cities, and the National League of Cities. The conversation that has been had with respect to Amendment 1 and the increasing of the homestead spoke to the issue of higher taxes. It spoke to the reduction of our available tax dollars and the fact that they believe that one size does not fit all. What we wanted to be able to do as a body was to lend our support, because we all heard the conversation as to how this potential amendment will affect the dollars that will come into the various cities and the municipalities, as well as in the counties, as well as in the county. And we wanted to be able to lend our support because we recognize that we need the dollars to operate and to provide the services that our citizens need desperately by way of services. And we did not want to see any impact to the dollars that would be provided to this body in order to provide the necessary services to our communities. So some of the things that was brought to the forefront of the conversation is that we wanted to make sure that the information was disseminated to residents so that they could fully understand some of what the intent was behind this amendment. So they talked about, with this amendment, some individuals will pay far less than others, and we wanted to be able to address what this really means for Riviera Beach taxpayers and the state of Florida as a whole, but we're speaking specifically to Riviera Beach and how this will overall affect us. So it says that it will shift taxes onto the small businesses, and we want to make sure that we provide some provisions and safeguards for our small businesses, which we know is the backbone of the economy, and it contributes to employment in our various communities. We talked about, during the League of Cities, we talked about the fact that increasing this homestead, when we look at the overall revenue that is generated through the property taxes and how that usually is measured out to the various communities, we have to take into consideration that some of our homeowners have, it tells you that it's going to benefit those who have smaller tax it tells us that the tax break was going to be for a handful, and we just wanted to be able to lend our support and to provide information on the various amendment so that individuals would be clear on what this truly means for us as we move forward in looking to address this amendment. So what this body has proposed is that we would bring in an individual. We searched with the League of Women Voters, and we also reached out to a couple of other organizations. But what we most recently have done is reached out to Mr. Chris Smith, who served on the amendment committee, to ask him to come in and to bring information to us so that we would be able to provide good, solid information that would be beneficial as we move forward in addressing the various amendments that are to come forward. So with this amendment, we understand that there are pros and cons, and we want to be able to provide that, but this body had a discussion as we participated in the League of Cities to lend our support in sharing the information as it relates to how this will create additional inequities in our state, but more importantly in our city, and that's how we got to this juncture. I don't know if any of my colleagues have any questions about it, but we all received the information. I believe that we all received the information from the League of Cities, which provided the information on how we got to this point and how to address the questions, and we just wanted to be able to provide that information to our residents.
Madam Chair,
Chair Pro Tem, you recognize?
I agree that the public need to know the effect of having this homestead exemption item on the agenda. We know that we have to provide certain services for this community, and they have to be paid for one way or another. Our residents need to know that if we don't pay on the front end, we will pay on the back end. So when we make it seem like it's such a great thing here to have this savings on the front end, and our residents end up paying so dearly on the back end, we need to tell them that up front and make sure that it's understood the type of things and the cost, and where they are likely to see those costs pop up when we start to try to provide all these services that they are used to receiving. It sounds good now, and as usual, a tax break only benefits those with a lot of money. But it doesn't, on the smaller scale, where small business and medium home family incomes, it's not going to fare well for us when everything else starts going up. When once a year we have this break here, but everything else starts going up. And we need to know that up front, and we need to not just make this look like it's such a great thing right now. So that's what I wanted to make sure that our community understands.
Madam Chair,
Councilwoman Botel, you recognize?
my main concern with this is that it's one more example of taking home rule away, because this is not something that Tallahassee should be deciding. If we want to do something with our taxes, this is something that Riviera Beach should be deciding, not Tallahassee. This affects homeowners with approximate assessed values between $100,000 and $125,000. That's less than a quarter of the properties in Florida. If you look at Riviera Beach, how many homes do you think on the west side of Riviera Beach fall into that category? 100 and 125,000. Not a whole lot, I would estimate. If you look at the numbers, when you get over, and this was a calculation done by the League of Cities, when you get over a home that's worth 200,000, you start to lose. If this goes into effect, sure, you're going to get your little piddling, maybe $250 savings because of this. If you're homesteaded, you'll get your little $250, but you will lose in the long run because the assessed value of your home, if it's over $200,000, is going to be so much higher because of the increase in property taxes that we'll have to levy. So everybody loses, whether you live on the west side of Riviera Beach or on Singer Island. We lose as a result of this. So that's why I'm against this this homestead. And we can ask Mr. Sherman if he would remind us how much of a dent it puts in our budget. It's something shy of $600,000, if I'm right, yes. Shy of $600,000 dent in our budget if this thing passes. So I think this is something that we want to take a real hard look at and caution people about voting in favor of it, when really it's not going to do you a whole heck of a lot of good.
I would agree. I would definitely agree. And, you know, we are not operating outside of any confines or rules, advocating for it or against an issue. We have a responsibility to the citizens that have elected us to make sure that we provide the information to them, and so that they will be able to make the best decision that will ultimately affect them in the long run. So that was the purpose for us bringing this resolution forward. We are within our rights to bring a resolution forward, and are there any other comments?
Madam Chair.
Councilwoman Miller Anderson, you're recognized.
No, I mean, I basically echo everything you all have said. We were all down there at the League of Cities Conference and when this was discussed, and we know the importance of it and how it will impact our city. So I'm in support of it. I just wanted to make sure the public understood what that meant for them, so.
Absolutely, and we are very much hopeful that during our scheduled events, I'm trying to get it confirmed now so that we can bring Senator Smith for this presentation to share greater information. Madam Clerk?
Councilperson Miller Anderson,
Yes.
Councilperson Botel,
Yes.
Pro Tem Hubbard,
Yes.
Chair Davis Johnson.
Yes.
Unanimous vote. Item number 8, resolution number 108-18, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, in support of the passage of amendment to Article 6, Section 4, Florida Constitution, Voting Rights Restoration for Felons Initiative 2018, and provide an effective date.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. I brought this forward as well because this has certainly been a long time coming, and we've had constituents that have come to us asking us to look into this matter and to lend our support to it. And so when the information was made available, this board, we also, again, at League of Cities, had this information to come forward, but more importantly, we know that this is the right thing to do. Once an individual has been released from jail and has that stigma of a felony charge against them, they just should not be prevented from voting. And we want to be able to lend our support of the passage of amendment to the article, which is of the Florida Constitution, Voting Rights Restoration for Felons Initiatives. And we are excited about that because we have a large contingency of people within our community that have felony charges that are assessed to them. And we want to be able to provide an opportunity for them to participate in voting, which is a responsibility, a civic duty and responsibility to all that reside in this community and the United States. So that was very simple. We don't need to, I don't want to prolong or belabor. The facts are the facts. We have, you know, so many individuals from this community as well as the country at large that are struggling with this and having the inability to vote. And so that is part and parcel of my reason for suggesting that we, bless you, that we vote in support of the passage of this amendment. Any other comments?
Madam Chair,
Councilwoman Botel, you're recognized.
Florida is one of only 3 states that don't allow felons who've paid their dues to vote. I think it's time we get out of
It's
that
time.
category.
We agree.
Madam
Any other
Chair.
comments? Mr. Mayor, you're recognized.
Yes, it's, Florida is one of the fewer states that's in a lot of categories, so it's hopefully and prayerfully will come out of this one, and that people will go out and realize that once you've done your time for the crime, then you should not be stripped of your right to vote. I do want to, I know this has been a lot of people who have been out there advocating for the rights, and we call them returning citizens to kind of take the stigma of ex-felons off. But I do want to commend and congratulate Councilwoman Lynn Hubbard, who has been on the forefront of this movement for years and going the extra mile as relates to returning citizens and fighting for them for employment. And you know, and this is what makes us good government. Doesn't mean that we agree or disagree on every issue, but those things that we do agree on and find common ground, we ought to be able to say that as well as disagree on other issues as they come up. But this is one that I do want to commend Councilwoman Lynn Hubbard for all that she has done as it relates to fighting, advocating, and standing up for the rights of returning citizens, not just in Riviera Beach, but she has been on the forefront of the fight for Palm Beach County. So I want to say thank you, Councilwoman Hubbard.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Madam Clerk?
Councilperson Miller Anderson,
Yes.
Councilperson Botel,
Yes.
Pro Tem Hubbard,
Yes.
Chair Davis Johnson,
Yes.
unanimous vote.
End of our consent. Any person who would like to speak on an agenda item, please fill out a public comment card and give it to the staff prior to the item being presented to City Council for discussion. Members of the public will be given 3 minutes to speak on each regular agenda item. In no event will anyone be allowed to submit a comment card and speak on an agenda item after the resolution is read or item is considered. Unfinished business?
None.
Public comments shall begin at 7:30 PM unless there is no further business of the City Council, which in that event, it shall begin sooner. In addition, if an item is considered at 7:30 PM, then comments from the public shall begin immediately after the item has been concluded. Any person who would like to speak during public comments, please fill out a public comment card located on the table directly outside of the council chambers and give it to the staff before the public comment sections is announced. Are there any petitions and communications for filing?
There are none, Madam Chair. Just a reminder, October 16th, 2018, at 6 o'clock p.m., there will be a workshop held with the Charter Review Advisory Board and the City Council. I remember at our last City Council meeting, there was a constituent that asked about the public having the opportunity to have an input. The meetings for the Charter Review Board is advertised on our website as well as TV 18 along with the agenda packet, and the board welcomes the public input at that time. So anytime that the public wants to come out and speak at a meeting, they are more than welcome to do so. I also would like to give kudos to Ms. Tawana Smith. I received 2 communications on the outstanding customer service that she has provided with going above and beyond what is called of her. So I just wanted to publicly say thank you to Ms. Tawana Smith for allowing the city of Riviera Beach to be her choice of employment and helping us to shine like a diamond.
Kudos to Ms. Smith. Kudos.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Mayor, you recognize.
Thank you. I have a question for the clerk. Does that, when you say you welcome the public to come and ask questions or participate in whatever, does that also include elected officials?
Madam Chair,
Madam Clerk.
when the meeting is advertised, it is stated on the meeting notice that members of the elected board will be present at the meeting. So at any time that any elected official would like to attend the meeting, as you all know, the board has sent out invitations to you all to attend. So more than one can attend at any time, and there is a public comment speaking section on the agenda.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Awards and presentations.
None.
Public hearing number 9.
Number 9 has been deleted, Madam Chair.
That's correct.
We're on to number 10, if you so desire.
So desired.
Item number 10, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, authorizing and directing the intervention into a lawsuit seeking a declaration that the provisions punishing elected officials set forth in Section 790.33 Florida statutes for violating the preemption related to the regulation of firearms and ammunition are invalid and provide an effective date. Madam Chair, we do have public comment cards on this item. The acceptance of public comment cards on this item is closed.
Okay. Is there a motion?
So moved.
It's been motioned and properly second. Councilwoman Botel?
Yes. This is a lawsuit that has now been joined by 23 other cities. I have the names here, but I won't take the time to read them, but they're substantial cities that have joined this suit. What it attempts to do is to, once again, remove the interference of Tallahassee in our business. Right now, we can have a civil fine imposed on us personally of $5,000 out of pocket, personal out of pocket, any local official or agency who willfully and knowingly enacts a local gun law, and we can be removed from office. You know, God forbid we should get kicked off council, go back to retirement. And so what I would like to have us do is join in this lawsuit. Now, in the documentation provided, it talks about a $10,000 fee, but every city that joins reduces the cost by $100. So right now, it's up to $9,200. And what it will do is say to the state, you know, we might like someday to put up a sign at City Hall that says, no firearms allowed. Or we might like to put up a sign in a local park that says, please leave your guns at home. And we can't do that right now. We might like to enact any number of gun-related legislation, and we can't do that right now unless we want to face a $5,000 fine and being kicked off city council. And it also states that cities or counties could be found liable for up to $100,000 for passing a restrictive gun law. And I just think it's important for us to take a stand against this kind of interference on the part of Tallahassee.
Are there any questions from council?
Yes, ma'am.
Chair Pro Tem, you're recognized.
I wanted to find out about the allowance of guns in City Hall right now. So maybe the chief, the assistant chief can help me with this question as well. I'm thinking that we have the right, as it stands right now, to maybe have a locker at the front where the security guards are, so that persons who come into City Hall that have guns on them can check them in and leave them right there. Do we not have the right to do that at this time?
Come on, front.
I don't think we do.
Hello, Councilors. Major Spencer Rozier, the current Acting Assistant Chief of Police. To address your question, right now, there is a law as far as carrying concealed weapons, which permits people to carry concealed weapons inside of City Hall. I don't think they're allowed to come into the meeting, but as far as the downstairs area right now, I don't think there's anything on the book prohibiting that.
So if, with all the gunplay that we have here in our city, until this passes or until this is declined, since we're having this discussion, I think that we should have some type of lockers or something so that people who have firearms on them can leave them down, because as you can see, we have healthy discussions and exchanges in our council chamber, I mean, in our City Hall. So we might want to take a precaution and have people check their guns in downstairs, because someone could be upset with someone else.
Yeah. I can definitely understand the concern, especially what's happening in today's world, but you want to be careful and make sure that it's vetted by our legal counsel, because right now, if they have a license to carry concealed weapons, there's nothing prohibiting them from bringing that inside of City Hall. But they can't come inside of a meeting, city official meeting.
Are you familiar with any place that have those lockers, so that if you have a gun, you have to check it in and put it there, and they give you the key?
Yes, at the courthouse, they have a similar system.
Yes.
My understanding, and you may have something similar on the outside of this chambers, because they're not, if I'm correct, they're not allowed to bring a gun, whether it's carry, concealed weapons permit or not, inside of a city meeting, but not necessarily City Hall itself.
So, you're saying to put the locker right outside the hall?
Yeah, I really was talking about downstairs because into the building because I had well, I was talking with this deputy, this former deputy, and they were just appalled that we did not have that in place downstairs soon as they check in with our security and admit that they have a weapon, that it's not checked in some type of locker format downstairs. Because, and again, I'll say because of the climate, you know, we like healthy exchange in our community and in our city, and we also have a lot of gunplay, so an accessibility to firearms. So I think that we should, you know, take a precaution ourselves
I can definitely understand.
to look into it.
Yeah, I can definitely understand the concern, but you definitely would have to have your legal counsel really research that before you implement that.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Councilwoman Miller Anderson, you recognize?
can Mr. DeGraffenreich weigh in on that?
In order to address your concerns concisely, I have to research it. I'd like to give you a response in writing. But off the cuff, my understanding is that the licensure and entitlement to carry a weapon has been preempted by the state legislature, and as indicated by our law enforcement official, it is very specific in what we can and cannot do. There are very limited places where, and they're outlined in the statute, where once you're licensed to carry a firearm, you're precluded from doing it. One of the few is the courthouse, and one is in a legislative meeting such as this. And that's why he made the distinct point of you can't bring a gun in here, but persons are entitled to carry their weapons in our lobby and other places that are not de facto a public meeting. With respect to the lockers, while it might be a good idea to do that, I'm not clear on whether or not we could compel persons that are licensed to carry weapons to use those lockers. I think it's a good idea. You know, and some of the entitlements to carry a firearm offend me personally in their common sense applications, but that's something that's been preempted. I will tell you in detail what it is.
Did Ms. Busby give you some additional, did she have something to add? She just gave you some paper. I assumed it was related to
I've
that,
not
or
seen
no?
what you gave me.
Huh?
I-
It's in front of you.
No, that's just the statute.
Oh, okay.
And it says preemption, and it says policy intent, that it's something that's limited to the legislature. The challenge we got as a municipality is by constitution and general law, we are a creature of the legislature, and we exist subject to their whim and caprice. It's just the way it is.
Hence the suit.
I understand, but it does not change the constitution nor the general law. I appreciate the political statement, but it's structured differently.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Mayor, you recognize?
Yes, I was a member of the council when this law was passed by the state. I'm on record at the very beginning that it was a law that I thought was very, very bad and should not have ever been passed. And I still feel the same way. I want to, again, commend one of my colleagues, this time Dr. Patel, for taking charge and leading the charge and joining us with other elected officials of the cities who have see the wisdom of not having this kind of law as it relates to City Hall. But Dr. Patel, I know that you said in the interest of time, however, it appears that we're going to be out probably 2 hours earlier, fortunately, tonight. So if you would you name those 21 or 23 cities who are already on record, who are already supporting this resolution?
Madam Chair,
Councilwoman Botel, you recognize?
thank you. City of Weston, City of Miramar, City of Pompano Beach, Village of Pinecrest, City of South Miami, City of Miami Gardens, City of Miami Beach, City of Coral Gables, Town of Cutler Bay, City of Lauderhill, City of Boca Raton, Town of Surfside, City of Tallahassee, City of North Miami, City of Orlando, City of Fort Lauderdale, City of Gainesville, City of St. Petersburg, City of Maitland, Village of Key Biscayne, West Palm Beach, North Miami Beach, City of Safety Harbor, Village of Palmetto Bay, and City of Dunedin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted that to be read into the record for the benefit of our residents who are viewing on television and did not have that knowledge. But we see that the passing of this resolution is definitely in step with some of the major cities in Florida, and that I would hope that it would pass unanimously tonight. Thank you, Madam Chair. And Dr. Botel.
Public comment card?
Thane Lozman, Troderick McCoy.
Thane Lozman. I want to preface my comments. I have a tremendous amount of respect for Councilperson Botel, and I think she has a lot of good intentions, but sometimes good intentions get run over in the state of Florida. For example, the state of Florida has 411 municipalities in it. You read a list of 23, okay? Even if you get up to 50, you have 411 municipalities. There's a lot of Second Amendment types in those municipalities are going to fight to keep this law on the books. When you look at the big-time laws, Second Amendment, First Amendment, those are done at the state and federal level. I think these municipalities that want to change that are kind of barking up a tree. If you want to change it, you put an amendment on the ballot and you change it that way. You're not going to get any relief in a legal action. Personally, I think you're just throwing money away. These municipalities think they're going to get some kind of legal relief. That's not going to happen. The way you change the law is the way it was put in. You lobby your legislature, you get groups of people who want to change it. It's like they changed the medical marijuana law. That's the way you change it. This lawsuit is not going to go anywhere, even if you had 200 cities in there. You have to change it by a ballot initiative. That's the way you change it. Now, you think that's an unusual law. The way some municipalities have it is that when you have a public meeting, no firearms can come in City Hall at all. So there's a moratorium on bringing them in during a public meeting. When you bring them in on a non-public meeting, they have somebody escort the person around because they're really afraid of a concealed weapon holders. They actually have a police officer walk around with the person wherever they're going, and then when they leave, the police officer leaves. So some cities have tried to adapt to this law by not taking away access, but they escort them around, and when they have a public meeting, you can't come into City Hall at all. So those are two things that may allay your concern short of the locker. But I think the locker is a violation because you're having a concealed weapon holder give up their firearm, and that's not part of the things. You have to be very careful because that could put you in the $5,000 fine category for whoever does that. But here's some laws that you may think are unbelievable. You can't have open carry in the state of Florida. You cannot have a pistol on your belt like you can in some southern states. But you can under limited exceptions, and you can have your attorney look it up. If you are going to fish off the Blue Heron Bridge, you can have open carry during the transit to go fishing and the transit to come away from fishing. So you could have 100 people with pistols on their belt fishing off the Blue Heron Bridge. You can also carry a weapon if you're in the process of going hunting to and back from a hunting location. So those laws are still in the book. There used to be another law in the book that you could have the backyard shooting range. They got rid of that recently, where you would be fined $5,000 if you try to take away the backyard shooting range. So there are some unusual firearm laws in the books, but you want to change them, you're better off taking the money and having a lobbying effort to put it on a ballot. I think this lawsuit is it's never going to go anywhere. Thank you.
Troderick McCoy.
Good afternoon, members, Mayor,
Good afternoon,
City
sir.
Manager. I, in fact, would have to agree. And my first question is this, and I'm afraid that this is going to come in on the negative. Has anybody even read the lawsuit? And here's why. According to all the research that I've done, this exact same lawsuit was filed in 2012, and Palm Beach County sued the state of Florida and challenged its authority in regulating guns across the entire state. And I go back to what was said. I think what we have to remember is what the legislative intent is. I think the legislature wants a uniform law. That way, when you go from Riviera Beach, it's not one law, and then when you enter into West Palm Beach, it's a different law. Similar to how traffic laws is, because think about it. If there was a prohibition in Riviera Beach on texting and driving, you wouldn't even know when you got into Mangonia Park and you get stopped by a sheriff's deputy. So I think the intent is there, but we need not to get ahead of ourselves because we're throwing definitely good money into a lawsuit that has no cause of actions that's stated. Because if you look at the lawsuit, it doesn't even delineate that the state doesn't have the authority. I think before you even can sue, you have to first find out if the state has that authority. And until you can challenge that they don't have that authority, then you're fighting a losing battle just to begin with. Secondly, it was mentioned that, well, at least in the backup, it doesn't even show where the $10,000 come from, what budget line item. But it's just interesting that we find money for things that don't even make sense, like a lawsuit that's not going to even get off of the ground. But then we can't even identify it in a $73 million budget. I personally don't think it's a good lawsuit. I think it's bad. And for someone to mention something like the climate in which we are, I have a problem with that because in 2017, the month of October, the chief held a press conference with the assistant chief and the major, and they stood up and said something like, ride or die. And to me, I took that as a personal threat. And nobody has so much as even given the assistant chief, or I believe he was the acting chief at that point, a reprimand. So that, in my opinion, is all of the reasons why people want to carry a firearm. And what does the city do when there aren't any policies? Well, an individual comes in lawfully carrying, they place him under arrest or detain him, and then they try to figure out if there's any policies that's been broken. But quite honestly, there is no policies. And I think for good reasons. If you go to Palm Beach County, 301 North Olive, their policy is you're escorted throughout the building. So we shouldn't try to recreate something that's already existing. And furthermore, the other thing is this, the mere fact, and you should look this up and this should also be noted on the record, an individual that's carrying a concealed weapon, their information is exempt under statute. So the city shouldn't create a new law to require them to present it, to sign a book, or to do any of that. Because just in typical fashion, I did a public records request, and I got a public record of everybody that signed the law book. But if you go to Tallahassee, you can't find out anybody in your city that has a concealed weapon. So we're fighting a battle that I think is going nowhere and going nowhere fast.
Chair Pro Tem, you recognize?
Yes, I did say the climate in which we're living. When you had 5 to 7 shootings of young people all under the age of 20 with access to automatic weapons, there is something to be said for that. So we have to, our situation might be different from somebody else's situation. And we have to look at it like that. Until you sit on the front row of that church and have to bury one of your own, then you can feel a little bit better about it. But you can be callous with somebody else's children's lives. So I'm not trying to take away anybody's right to bear a firearm. I'm just saying we have more of a responsibility in this building to keep everybody safe. I don't believe that people shouldn't have the right to bear arms. I believe they do, but I still think that we have the right to keep people safe when they enter into this building, just like you have the right to keep your family safe at your home. You have every right to, by any means necessary, to protect everybody in your house. And we have that right here, and I think we have the responsibility here in this city. So, yes, we are in a climate where somehow our children are having access to firearms, and we have not figured out how that is happening yet. But in the meantime, I think we still have to do our duty and the best that we can to protect as many people as we can.
Madam Chair.
Councilwoman Botel, you recognize?
Thank you. It may be only 23 cities now, and there may be over 400 in the state, but I think it was Margaret Mead that said, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world." Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. And so I'm willing to be in that group of small, committed citizens that's willing to take at least this small step. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Mayor, you recognize.
Well, I want to certainly go on record that I certainly agree with Mr. Lozman and also Mr. McCoy as far as until the law is changed, at least we can do is escort people around. So I want the assistant chief to know and security that if someone comes in here and they have a gun and they come into the mayor's office, I want them escorted. And I'm sure my colleagues would agree. There isn't any reason why anyone should go to any office in this building unescorted. So, Chief, Assistant Chief, please make sure that that part is something that, because we're living in turbulent times and you just don't know. And I certainly want them escorted if they come in. Of course, there's no reason to do any harm to the mayor, but just in case, I do want that person escorted to the mayor's office. And I speak for me only. Thank you.
Any further comments from council?
Madam Chair.
Councilwoman Miller Anderson, you recognize.
In response to the mayor, and I believe someone came up to the podium and spoke of that as well, I do believe that is a policy we should have in place so that it's not a random selection of people being escorted, and in that way, we'll have it in black and white. So maybe for our next meeting, we can have that policy created and be able to vote on and have a resolution for that so that we can have it.
Make a motion.
Can I have a
We
make
can
a
direct
motion?
staff, we don't need a motion, we
Okay.
can direct staff to bring back the request. Are we all in agreement with that particular policy?
Yes.
Staff, Madam Manager, if you would research the proper language and bring that back to us at our next meeting.
Yes.
Thank you. Madam Clerk?
Councilperson Botel,
Yes.
Councilperson Miller Anderson,
Yes.
Pro Tem Hubbard, Chair Davis Johnson.
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
Discussion and deliberation. Discussion by city manager. Well, before we go to our discussions, public comment? We will begin public comment at this time. One moment, please. Public comment should be restricted to issues, matters, or topics pertinent to the City of Riviera Beach. Please be reminded that the City Council has adopted rules of decorum governing public conduct during official meetings, which has been posted at the entrance of the council chambers. In an effort to preserve order, if any of the rules are not adhered to, the chairperson may have any disruptive speaker or attendee removed from the podium, from the meeting, and/or the building if necessary. Please govern yourselves accordingly. Madam Clerk?
The acceptance of public comment cards for this particular section of the agenda is now closed. Norm Adams, Daniel Barnett, Fane Losman.
Thank you. Norm Adams from North Ocean Drive, Singer Island. I'd like to repeat my comment that I shouted out of turn before, that if you call a meeting for 6 o'clock and you have a quorum here, you and the two women to your right, start the meeting. It's disrespectful to anyone who's here not to. I'm getting that off my chest. Another area where I truly believe you're wasting money. It is my understanding that you have 5 candidates for city manager in front of you. I don't know your timing, but I think it's a serious mistake and it'll be a waste of money if you don't wait until March. And the reason I say that is because 3 people are running who wanted for council in March. And given what happened to former Councilwoman Pardo, the chances are very good that at least one of the 3 of you, perhaps 2, perhaps 3, will lose in the election. Once that happens, I suspect, I may be wrong, that the new majority of the council will try to get Jonathan back. And it is my understanding from several lawyers I've spoken with that if both parties agree, that agreement that he won't come back is null and void, if the new council agrees and if Jonathan agrees. So if you hire a city manager now, and a new majority comes in and gets rid of him or her, there's gonna be a lot to pay in severance. So I urge you, wait until the March elections. Then, as far as draining the swamp, sometimes I look at the 5 or 6 of you, counting the mayor, as having your own piggy bank in Riviera Beach. 2 things I point out. The 6 of you have credit cards. At least 5 of you do. I'm not sure about Dr. Botel. And you have credit cards, nobody approves it. Sure, it goes to finance, but how's he gonna challenge his bosses? There should be a system, preferably get rid of all credit cards and use expense reports and have 2 or 3 other people on council approve it. It's a bad system you have. Finally, your automobile allowance. If my math is right, you get $9,000 a year for an auto allowance. Let's be conservative. Gas is selling for $3 a gallon. That means you're buying 3,000 gallons. Let's also be conservative. Your car gets 10 miles a gallon. That means you're driving your car on city business 30,000 miles a year. You're using this city, my tax money, their tax money, as your own piggy bank, and it has to stop.
Daniel Barnett, Fane Lozman, Lloyd Brown.
Good evening, Daniel Barnett. It's been a while. Good seeing you all.
Good
But
evening.
to start off, I came here for a reason, but before the gentleman I asked that'll be joining me in unity as an example of unity, it's an issue I have to make because the purpose we were coming, the deadline for registered voters is coming up next Wednesday, I believe the 9th. We were looking to host rallies. More than likely, we wanted to start yesterday, so we'll be starting Saturday. Just rallies starting Saturday throughout the rest of the weeks up until Wednesday. We'll be at different locations throughout the city with whatever, trying to get the younger generation registered to vote. But this is the thing, like before the meeting, freedom of speech, keep that in concept in mind. Sometimes you don't have to respond to everything, especially when you're representing the city as a whole. And I'm infested with passion. Passion is greater than love. But it's this, when we out here in the community, whether you're talking about shooting, politics, or whatever, we need unity. And in order to get unity, we need either get people registered to vote, we need to present ourselves, including me, because I am on ballot campaigning for the office of mayor. But like me and this gentleman, we asking that everybody sit politics to the side until the deadline for registration with voters. But let that campaign aside. But just being out there in the community, it's a lot of issues from me being in the field, working AC, painting, doing my own business, of getting subcontracted. It's things you all may know and then may not know of being heard about the city. And being an entrepreneur and representing the city, I'm offended, and that's interrupting with the passion. But with that being said, I may be the youngest here, so please don't take any of my words now or up into the to the election as disrespect. But we definitely need to focus on networking and unity because regardless if it's who's in office, if we don't have the right sufficient amount of unity as residents and business owners and property owners, it doesn't matter. We won't have enough influence or proper guidance to have any decision making because as residents, we don't have policy or power that you are in over as policy. But trying to get it out, I'm messing up. But Mr. Doug, if you don't mind, he's the gentleman that we talked yesterday, and like we said, we sit politics aside. It's not campaigning. Hopefully he's okay with starting Saturday because short time, but we'll be definitely partnering and joining the Concerned Mothers at Firehouse Park Saturday. I'll be there at 8 o'clock. I will be doing lunch and dinner by way of donation. So I'm asking if you all network, I'll be reaching out to you tomorrow, Friday. I know it's the end of the week and the last day, but if you can assist, I need a nonprofit organization, a third party. I'm trying to get 2,000 forms. Y'all don't feel like it's that much, but it's many adults I know that aren't involved with politics because they feel like it's not enough reputation to be involved to even vote. I just myself have really got registered to vote. I feel like we can make a difference locally. But with Mr. Gelman and running for mayor and other around the U.S., we have people coming into power. I feel like voters need to be more influential and involved far as locally and on the greater scales of politics. But definitely Saturday at Firehouse Park, this week is out.
Thank you, sir.
Fane Lozman, Lloyd Brown, Bonnie Larson.
Fane Lozman. Couple things. First of all, I wonder how many of all the shootings in Riviera Beach were done by somebody with a concealed weapons license. Because concealed weapon license people have to go through a background check. So you have to differentiate people that have had a background check with a concealed weapons license versus criminals that don't have a license. So that's something to consider. Second, somebody needs to find out what the story is with Bedard. You gave a direction to, that you wanted to replace him with the insurance company. We need to get an update on what's going on with that. This gentleman, who I've been seeing before in the green shirt, talked about taxes. You really need to be very careful and try to learn what happened in other municipalities when they had taxes that residents didn't think were appropriate, i.e. spending taxes on this resolution or that resolution. Norman Brayman, who used to own the Philadelphia Eagles, is one of the biggest car dealerships, one of the biggest car dealers in the United States, if not the biggest. In 2011, he initiated a recall against the Miami-Dade mayor and one of the county commissioners relative to taxes and improper spending, and he prevailed. They threw those two out of office. There's a lot of people who are, taxes are very important to them, what they are. And then it comes down to what is the real property value of a home in Riviera Beach? What is the median value? The median value, if you take 5,000 homes and you put the lowest assessed value in the highest, and you pick the middle one, the median priced home, not the average price, but the middle one of all the homes low to high is $208,000. So I think you need to look, when you look at $208,000, say, wow, we really do have a lot of equity in individual homes in Riviera Beach. We're in 2018, so the prices of what a home was in 2007 have more than doubled. So people would really benefit from that homestead exemption. The average homeowner in Riviera Beach is going to benefit. Not the average homeowner in Singer Island, the average homeowner or the median homeowner throughout the entire city. There's homes right around the corner that $250,000, $300,000 that 10 years ago you could buy for $100,000. So I think you need to realize when it comes to taxes, you're going down a slippery slope if you ever get a sophisticated voter base here, because they can do the same thing that happened in Miami-Dade. You need those kinds of decisions you really need to put on the ballot. Don't stick your neck out there when it comes to taxes, because people have been punished for that as elected officials. And finally, I was arrested here when I started talking about county corruption. And I think it's important to point out that Supreme Court Justice Ginsburg said at my oral argument that Riviera Beach is in Palm Beach County. The things that go in Palm Beach County have a direct impact on what goes on in Riviera Beach. And I think when you talk about the rules which benefits the city, you need to clarify that if somebody's discussing something in the county that's significant, because we're in Riviera Beach, county issues are also, can also be discussed at non-agenda public comment. Somebody needs to clarify that.
Lloyd Brown, Bonnie Larson, Douglas Lawson.
My name is Lloyd Brown. I'm going to take you around Riviera Beach in 3 minutes. Let me tell you, I went to the store. I bought some potato chips. They were soft. They were outdated. Then I say, oh, well, what the heck? Nobody else cares. Palm Beach folks don't. Channel 12 don't. I guess we must have the cleanest places to eat in Riviera Beach and in West Palm, because I done walked inside this Kentucky Fried down there and saw roaches. So I'm not talking to you people. I'm talking to the news media. What's up with that? Do you really care that these places are in the black neighborhood and mostly in poor neighborhoods, and say, well, they're not going to sell, so we really don't care? Because I'm going to tell you the honest truth. It's like, it's another situation. You're voting. Okay, I can understand that. But you know what? I was given my right to vote. But I've been a felon for a long time. And I'm 64. Okay, so now I get the right to vote. But I live in a neighborhood where people breaking in and kicking in doors, home invasion. So by the time I get somebody in there or they change the situation, I'll be pushing up daisies. And so, the right to vote I mean, you may as well put me in prison. I mean, that's not really, we need a revolution, but not one where we go stand in front of no building. We need to do just like Washington did with the British, because a lot of these laws in the Constitution, it's just a piece of paper to me, because it doesn't do anything for anybody that I know. And I mean, those rights to vote, I mean, how long do you think it's going to take to get all your rights? I mean, they should have never had taken the right to vote, because if you have the right to vote, that means you had the opportunity to change your situation while you were there, and with that right. See, because there were 3 civil rights workers that died for that one right, and that right should never be taken. Okay, you can take a guy who's a violent individual, his right, carry a weapon or to possess a weapon. But these guys I know now that are felons out there, they got unregistered weapons. You rather have 25,000 unregistered people in West Palm Beach who are felons without, the right to hold a gun. You understand what I'm saying? Or you rather have people who have registered guns, 25,000. I mean, because just like I was talking at the VA when they told me they weren't going to give me nothing for pain, I said, well, I can go in the corner and get that, but I'm trying to get it to you legally. You understand what I'm saying? So what I'm trying to say is this: all these felons want their rights, because we could get a gun. That ain't no big deal. So just the right to vote ain't making no difference, because you can vote anybody in, and everybody always say, well, you got the right to vote, and if you don't vote, then you don't have the right. But I'm still paying taxes for 20 and 30 years to build this city, so I don't see why I can't have all my rights, partial rights. I mean, you may as well not have none at all.
Bonnie Larson, Douglas Lawson, Bishop Thomas Masters.
Bonnie Larson, the gun thing has me kind of concerned. Now, we have metal detectors downstairs, so what are they doing? What are they looking for, and what do they do if they find something, and what's going to happen? I think a locker, we put it in the locker, we got the key for it, so you just go in and get it. As far as, it doesn't make somebody feel real comfortable coming to these meetings or coming into City Hall with what you're saying tonight. There was a gentleman here at the last meeting I attended. He was scary. He was really scary, and our policemen are way over there. So we just have to figure out a plan. But the way it is now, I'm wondering, what are those people downstairs? What are they checking for? A couple things, a lot of things actually. The board that we have outside, it was intended to announce things that are important to the city. What we have out there now, it says, welcome back to school, do well. Let's have that board out there have only city business, i.e. the meetings and the dates. Forget the time, temperature, welcome to the city. We all have a watch. We all know what time it is. We have cell phones. We know all that stuff. Because when you drive by there, I drove by many times this week. Not once did I see anything other than the frivolous things, which we all know anyway. So let's have that board out there, just reflect the meetings and things. Now, there were 2 meetings this last week, which I missed because I didn't know about them. You had a meeting on the bank issue. Okay, I didn't get to come to that because I didn't know about it. And I try and keep up with things. You had a meeting on the 3 Ps, private property. I didn't know about that. I would have liked to have been here to have heard about that. So we need to put the important stuff out there. Forget all the welcome, here's what time it is business. Forget all that. All right, we canceled the crab pot tonight. I was anxious to talk about that. Let's give a reason. If we're canceling something that's on the agenda, let's give the reason that it was canceled. I read it out here just before I came in. Canceled tonight. I look at the website pretty often, but I don't want to have to do it every single day. I don't even know if it is on the website, but come on. Utility, okay, I asked a lot of questions last week, and you asked Ms. Hoskins to answer, but I didn't get one answer to my question. And when that happens, please ask again. Please answer the questions. I asked about the utility building. We were told that that's the same. We were told that Florida Power & Light or AT&T were moving some cables. That's the same thing we heard a couple months ago. I asked for an update. A lot of people were asking about the insurance debacle. The response to that was, we're working on it. So nobody is really getting an answer. There's a response, but it's not an answer, and we come here for answers. So please give us that. Oh, thank you for moving the chairs and stuff tonight. That's much better to have all the aisles here. We can have the cards over here. That would be good. We got a little thing with graffiti starting up in the city. If you look at Jay's ministry, you'll see it's on the upper part of their building, so someone climbed up there. The other night, someone came over to me and said, they just graffitied on the back of Dairy Bell, and then the people from there went over to BB&T Bank. So we have to be aware of that's starting up. And, but we can have the answers, not a response, but the answers to our question. Thank you.
Douglas Lawson, Bishop Thomas Masters, Willis Williams.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, Honorable Mayor. My name is Douglas Lawson, and I wanted to talk about the crab pot. I know that we went ahead and moved that to a further date, but I've seen both sides of the actual discussion with the crab pot. I've seen that there's issues with the traffic, potential crime that's going to be coming, the noise ordinance that they've been working back and forth, and I see on the city side that, you know, the economic development that we can have. And members of the community over in the Marina Grande are torn because they really want to see the progress and development. The crab pot was designed to be there before the Marina Grande was actually built. So to stunt that development and that growth of putting in additional restaurants and businesses into the city is delaying the process. And we keep pushing this process back every day. So we have to come to a happy medium with the residents, with the crab pot, with the city to determine what's going to be the best approach for that crab pot to come in. The young man, Mr. Barnett, that came over, he actually came to my office recently, and it wasn't a political discussion. It was a discussion of unifying and uniting the city. The deadline is coming up on October 9th for voters here in the city, and I don't see any events going on this weekend for to register votes. And that's something that he actually wants to take on himself. That was very commendable because I said, Mr. Barnett, that's something that, you know, our city, our leaders should be doing to bring those voters to the table so that we can have additional votes brought to for this election that's coming up in November. The Democratic Black Caucus of Palm Beach County, they actually hosted an amazing event last week. And I commend all the council members. Thank you guys for coming. Dr. Botel, I think she had a prior engagement that evening, but everyone was there in high attendance. I think that we need to do a better job of giving better exposure for the council in the city, because even though somebody comes to our city, we want to make sure that Riviera Beach is recognized. When we bring something like this on a national level and it comes to our city, we want to make sure. I believe our chair, Ms. Johnson, did speak with some of the members there because our members should have been given the exposure that was necessary to represent Riviera Beach at that event. On a state level, that event was highly attended. This is a race that's being watched on a national level. So it brought a lot of exposure to Riviera Beach, and I really want us to keep pushing for things like that. And I want us to commend Ms. Tanya Davis-Johnson for actually, you know, speaking up on that behalf, because that's something that we want to actually continue to do here in the city. The last thing is the community outreach event that happened on the Grand Classical last night. Those are certain things that are happening in our community that a lot of the residents don't even know about. And a lot of our residents want to be a part of these different events and different community outreach events that are going on in the city. So I'm not sure if it's the city website or Riviera Beach that can give more advice to our members or our residents or our constituents to say, hey, this is what's going on, but it's just announcing a few more things that can happen. Thank you.
Bishop Thomas Masters, Willis Williams, Dr. Philip Dukes, Trodrick McCoy.
Let me announce for the benefit of those that may not know that the issue of whether the bishop can speak and also be the mayor has been vetted by the city attorney. So he says yes, that although I am the mayor, that I am a pastor and a bishop, and I do have that First Amendment right to speak. So I just want to make sure people understand that we're not trying to take advantage of the opportunity to speak twice either. I do want to commend the young man who's also running for mayor that spoke a few minutes ago, Daniel Barnett, for the efforts that he is championed to happen at the park. I wish he was here because I want him to know that I certainly support his efforts as it relates to bringing unity to the city. He's one of my friends, and I admire the fact that our young people want to seek higher offices, and we certainly should not discourage our young people, even if it's the mayor or the chair's position or Lynn or Dr. Botel, when young people want to get engaged and get involved in their government, they are to be commended. So of course, I hope he loses, but just a little humor. But I certainly want to give some money to that effort to a nonprofit that is going to that he's going to be working with. Also, I want to say, as it relates to Norm's comment, I certainly agree with that, but I'll talk more about it later as the mayor. But more importantly, I'm holding up a flyer, and it definitely falls within the humanitarian role of ministry. It's actually being supported, sponsored by Nelson's Outreach Ministries. The people in North Carolina are still hurting. Some of them, as we spoke to one of the clergymen, without anything. So there is a community effort sponsored by Nelson Outreach Ministry, and they're going to fill an 18-wheeler truck. Hopefully they'll be on the ground within the next week or so. So we're asking, and they're asking, and I'm also helping to assist in coordinating the community efforts as well for everything. Smaller items, bottled water, Gatorade, personal toiletries, clothing, baby supplies, and non-perishables. The drop-off sites, one, it would be the Riviera Beach Main Fire Station, Pentecostal Church of God in Christ, 1289 West 28th Street, Mount Olive Missionary Baptist Church, 1290 AC Evans Street, and Friendship Missionary Baptist Church in West Palm. And I'm sure that every church would certainly consider being a drop-off point. Just get with your pastor, and the Nelson Ministries have assured me that they will be right on it and get these supplies as soon as possible. I would certainly hope that all elected officials would get behind this humanitarian effort, and let's get supplies up there to North Carolina. And I certainly welcome the support of Dr. Lydia Smith and all who are running for offices, for various offices up there. This is something that we all can support. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Willis Williams, Dr. Philip Dukes, Trodrick McCoy.
Good evening, Council. Willis Williams, Riviera Beach. A few of the public has spoken on a few of the things that I wanted to talk about, especially the register to vote. And we normally would see a gathering of people around the community registering new voters, because I would think, especially with the climate of people that we got running this term, that everybody would try to be putting at least 600 or 700 different people on the books to be registered. So I commend them for bringing that forward. The other thing that I really wanted to talk about was, I know a week or so ago we had the discussion about the payroll thing, and I know you're going to bring that back, and I would ask that when you bring that back, also bring back the credit card situation. Was there any credit card payments that were not paid or people didn't get paid? Because I think that was a part of the transition that messed up in the bank, whether it was the bank side or the city side. I'm waiting on the determination on that. So we just need to find out, was there any transaction on either side of the credit card statements were done. The other thing would be simply that we need to make sure that the registration get done. I don't think it's too late that the city could put on something for a voters registration drive, that we could take some sort of initiative and get something started. Because we had a turnout the other week for the gentleman that's running for governor, and it was one beautiful turnout with that many people showing up. So I would think that we would try to do something to that nature. Thank you.
Let the record reflect that Councilman Davis is now on the dais.
Dr. Philip Dukes, Trodrick McCoy.
Dr. Philip Dukes, 1217 Avenue U, Riviera Beach, Florida, Council, Mayor's Office. Next Saturday at 2:30 p.m. To 6 p.m., we're going to be at 1217 Avenue U, Jiffy Storefront. Mothers Against Murderers, Mr. Dan Calloway and the Youth Recreation Association and Operation Restore. We're going to be putting on an event against violence. We're going to have free food, and we want to invite everyone to come out to this event. That's next Saturday, 1217 Avenue U in the city of Riviera Beach. Also, my production company got picked up as an independent artist on a national level. Now, we're working toward this. My production company has 3 adults and 6 children out of the city of Riviera Beach to do recordings. So what we are doing now, we're pushing that. We're taking 30% of all of our downloads and bringing it back to the city of Riviera Beach. If you go on iTunes or Broad Jams and put in Bishop Philip Dukes, you'll see our Christmas music is out and other music, positive rap music that we're putting out. We're asking for your support. Also, to help Operation Restore, which is our nonprofit, to stand in our city. There's a lot of things going on in our city that are great, but all over America, let me be black for a minute. Death, murder, we kind of push that on the rug. That's what they do in our neighborhoods, whether it's Chicago, LA, New York, or wherever. Now, I haven't changed my rhetoric because it's sound. When the kids die in our neighborhoods and they do shootings, we go like, oh, that's what they do. And the broader spectrum of society, that's what they expect out of us. And we in this city cannot follow that same pattern. We're not a metropolitan city. We have 12 to 15 murders a year almost in our city. That's unacceptable. And thug life is fueling this. Now, we just talked about being responsible and being safe. What about our neighborhoods? You know, I just had another shooting in my neighborhood. You buy drugs on the streets of Riviera Beach like you buy chiclets. But we can change that. I counsel so many people on cocaine. I counsel so many people on drugs. And you know what? A lot of them are afraid to speak out because of retaliation. So I'm asking you to support us. I'm going to continue to push this in our city. We should be the example to the nation of how we take responsibility in our communities with this problem that they say they can't solve. That's a lie. You can solve it because you got some folk, listen, this has nothing to do with jobs. They just don't work. We don't want to deal with thug life because we don't want to deal with the repercussions of it. Our children are being socialized to that, and it affects schools. That's why some of these children come to school so angry because of that negative attitude. So we got to be in the streets of our city. That's why we're taking 30% of all our downloads to make our city an example. LA won't do it. Chicago won't do it. It's what you call culture divide. Then they want to make it out of what we call a racial thing. And anyway, there's only one race anyway, something that's not taught in America. So listen, next Saturday from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m., 1217 Avenue U, we're going to have all our literature. Y'all come out. We're going to have some good food. And if you want to make a donation, just come out and write a check. We're not receiving any checks that's under $20,000. Thank you.
Trodrick McCoy.
Trodrick McCoy, Riviera Beach. To the existing council members, if I can just do a continuation on my comments from earlier, I want to also point out, relative to the preemption of firearms to the state of Florida, that does put the city in a bad position. And I think we're certainly intelligent and savvy enough to come up with some really creative ways on how we don't infringe on individuals' right to carry in a public facility. And absent of that, here's what happens. When you don't have any ability to control the city in a knee-jerk reaction, they direct the security personnel to notify the police department that this individual refuses to sign in on a logbook. And there is no requirement that an individual do sign a logbook. There's no requirement. In fact, it's an invasion of privacy to ask someone to take off their weapon, to display it, or even to put it inside of a locker. So I just really have to say, I would have really been a little bit better off if somebody would have actually said that they read the lawsuit. And when I took a look at it, there's nothing in that lawsuit that, in my opinion, and I'm no legal scholar, that really justifies the need of trying to have local authority to create their own rules. And what happens when the security does do that, let me tell you what they do when the security invites the police to come in and detain someone. It's a stop and frisk. It's an unlawful detention. It causes them to then run around and try to figure out and perhaps even create a policy. But interesting enough, just from a public records request, the city had established that there is no policy. I went back and looked at minutes from 2011 when the city was forced to pass an ordinance to remove bad language related to concealed weapons off of the book, and the chief then, Chief Williams, said that there would be policies, but clearly the policy can't be to illegally detain someone at the front of the building and place them in handcuffs to then turn around and find out that you have no authority to tell them that they can't come into the building. So those are going to be repercussions. And let me tell you something. It's outright despicable for a council person to say by any means necessary. So you just said by any means necessary you're going to infringe on somebody's right to carry? That is unbelievable. And I would think that the city should be in a better position than to say something like any means necessary. And it almost goes to the same culture when you have the chief of police, Clarence Williams, when you have the assistant chief, Michael Madden, when you have the major, Leonard Mitchell, stand up at a press conference that's a political event and tell people of the public that they should ride or die. Quite honestly, with that kind of culture and with that kind of climate, everybody should be carrying a gun.
Madam Chair, that concludes public comment.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Chair Pro Tem, you're recognized.
Thank you. I know we don't go back and forth, but I do want to clear up for the public. I did not say that here in the city, by any means necessary. I say in your home, just like you have the right to protect your family in your homes by any means necessary, each and every one of us have a constitutional right to protect our families. Pull the records. That is what I said. That's what I said we should do. What I said about here in the chamber is that we as a council have the responsibility to protect and keep the people who come here as safe as possible. I didn't say that the police or us as a council by any means necessary. I say you as an individual in your home have the right to keep your family safe and protect your family by any means necessary. That's a constitutional right. Read that.
Discussion by city manager. Madam Chair, I was notified that the National League of Cities Conference is going to be held November 7th through November 10th, and there are some city council members that have planned on attending that meeting or that conference. And as you know, the first meeting in November is November 7th. So, you know, what is your desire, or how many members are planning to go? National League of Cities.
Madam Chair.
No, one moment, Councilwoman. November 7th through the, okay, you're planning to go? So there's three of us planning to go. So we need to discuss rescheduling the November 7th meeting. I believe that's CRA. There's another, hold on 1 second. Can you put your calendars out, please? Well, remember we have, the week of the 21st falls into Thanksgiving, correct?
November 31st is, we have a fifth Wednesday.
I'm looking, we have fifth Wednesday, the
Oh, am I
28th.
looking at October? I'm sorry.
We're in November.
I'm looking at October. No, I thought it was in
There's,
November.
but there are four Wednesdays in November.
Yeah, I was looking.
So we have the 7th, which would be our regularly scheduled meeting, and then immediately, the following week, we would have the CRA meeting. So, that only leaves us the 21st and 28th, and I do believe, didn't we have a conversation about not meeting? Moving it to the 19th.
We moved it to the 19th.
So our schedule, that would be our first opportunity to just hold that meeting at that time on the 19th.
Which one?
The board.
Instead of the 7th.
Our council meeting. We talked about, could you go back to our notes where we talked about moving the meeting to Monday the 19th, because we would be falling on the Wednesday before
Well,
the
yeah,
holiday.
yeah, I'm fine with that. I was talking about the 7th.
That is the meeting for this.
Huh?
Oh, no,
It's the
that's
meeting
not.
for the
The
21st.
7th, we will not be there.
Right, so what about the 5th? Can we do it on the 5th, that Monday?
I'm not here.
Okay.
Monday
is a holiday for the 12th.
I was looking at October. I thought that was November I was looking at.
I'd prefer if we just do it on the 19th,
We just hold that one meeting on the 19th,
just the 19th.
if that,
Well, I mean,
consensus of the council?
well, I guess it really depends on if we have any items, like tonight's meeting was very short, obviously. But would we have anything that we need to meet on?
The
That,
only,
and can we go with just having one meeting?
so far for, sorry, the only big issue is Crab Pop coming back. So that would be the only, major,
Have they indicated when they
item.
wanted to return, how much time it would take them to review their correspondence?
No. And, Jeff, I don't know if you know at this point.
Do we have a date, Mr. Gagnon?
Because it would have to go back before planning and zoning also.
Madam Chair?
Councilwoman Miller Anderson.
Well, since today is just October 3rd, if maybe next meeting, by the 17th, if we should see that there's something else we need to meet on, we can consider meeting, we can schedule it then to replace that 7th, the November 7th meeting.
We can
can make a
discuss it on the
decision on it.
17th.
Okay.
As the city clerk announced on October 16th, you have the workshop with the Charter Review Committee. And then also,
Would you announce the location, please?
it will be here at City Hall in the City Council chambers. A workshop on October 16th with the Charter Review Committee. And then also,
It's here.
yes, ma'am, right here at City Hall. The parking consultant, we need to have that workshop, and if you all would like, we can have that workshop on October 15th, immediately following the USD special district meeting. He said his meeting will be, his agenda will be light that meeting, so we could immediately following have the parking workshop. The consultant is available on the 15th.
Okay.
Madam Chair, will that cover,
Councilwoman Botel, you recognize?
thank you, will that cover Ocean Mall parking?
Yes,
The
ma'am.
whole, great, okay, thank you.
So we're proposing to handle that workshop immediately following the Utilities District meeting?
Yes.
Chair Pro Tem, you recognize?
Speaking of the Ocean Mall parking, I want to find out with the parking study that the CRA did, the one they did for the marina and they did in Desmond and Walker, the Ocean Mall, have we taken both of them into consideration and came up with one, or will we flush that out at this particular workshop? Because we got two
Two different
studies, yeah.
Right.
Madam Chair.
1 moment, can we get it?
I can get with Scott and see.
Because I asked Scott to add on this upcoming agenda to have discussion for and deliberation for the parking garage that we've talked about, but we never brought it to the board. So I guess we'll have it there on CRA, and then we'll have the other part of it on the city side, because again, we did not determine which one we're going with, the Walker study or the Desmond study.
Right,
And
right.
in looking at them this week, we're gonna have to decide, what we are buying into.
Mr. Davis, you recognize?
If I stand corrected, when we spoke about the study on the CRA and the city side, there was a conversation to merge the two. And then the study had went to finance at the time with Mr. Sherman. And it never came back because we were trying to figure out why are we paying for two separate studies, and we can just make it across the entire city. Right, the city paid for it, so there was no use for us at the time, and we talked about, and I do believe, and I could be wrong, that we took a vote on the CRA side to not move forward that study and just focus on the citywide study that came through on the city side. and we've been just waiting for that to come back before this board. Quite some time now, for about 2 years now. So.
Madam Chair,
Councilwoman Botel, you recognize.
could I please have copies of those studies?
Sure. Staff, please get copies.
Madam Chair, can we get a motion directing the city clerk to advertise the workshop for October 15th?
Absolutely,
So
we'll entertain
moved.
a motion.
Second.
It's been motioned and properly seconded, Madam Clerk.
Councilperson Davis?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilperson Botel?
Yes.
Councilperson Miller Anderson?
Yes.
Pro Tem Hubbard? Chair Davis Johnson?
Yes.
Unanimous vote. Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Mr. Mayor, you recognize.
Yes, I have a couple questions of the city manager as well. Should I ask now, or would you prefer for me to ask in my comments?
During your comments, she's completing her comments at this time.
Okay, that's fine.
That's all I have, Madam Chair.
All righty, are there any city council committee reports?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Davis, you recognize.
Thank you. Last month, I serve on the Florida League of Cities Land Use and Economic Development Committee. And last month, we took the time to talk about just looking at our priorities, and we took a presentation from each priority. And those presentations were CRAs, floodplain maps, impact fees, annexations, ethics, film Florida, and permit extensions. And one of the things that we did, we didn't make any decision of what was going to be our priorities because we want to make sure everyone got some background information, the overview of what was taking place. But one of the interesting things that came out of that was the permit extensions. As you know, the governor has the right to use the state of emergency situation to extend permit extensions for developers across the state. But one of the issues that came out with the Zika virus and many others, he was using that as an opportunity to give developers an opportunity to get further extensions. But that wouldn't fall upon the state of emergency. It would fall upon the public health emergency. So there's some serious research that have taken place to show that in the next meeting that we will be talking about how cities can protect itself from giving developers an opportunity to take advantage of health issues versus state of emergency issues. Those are two totally different policies, totally different statutes. One has nothing to do with the other, but they've been kind of looped in over the time, and no one has challenged the governor on this. So there have been some serious research from the Florida League of Cities to find a way to give all our local cities an opportunity to take advantage of making sure that we hold developers consistent to the site approvals that we put in place, the time frames, so we can get fast response on our economic development. That'd be all.
Thank you, sir. Statements by the mayor and committee report. Chair Pro Tem, you recognize.
I serve on the Palm Beach Transportation Planning Agency, and there was a study done for US 1 multimodal corridor, and the study has come back. It was adopted by the MPO, former MPO, now the Palm Beach Transportation Planning Agency, and this will discuss quarter-based service along US 1 and major corridors as such. And that study they sent a book here for us. I'll put it in the legislative offices on the table there or over in the library so that anybody that's interested in the new stops that will be added and stops that will be deleted along the US 1 corridor can take a look at the book. And they want to thank the city of Riviera Beach for participating. Thank you.
Thank you. Statements by mayor and city council, starting with the mayor.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess there aren't any comments from the legal department? Okay, no, I was asking. Okay. I have a couple of questions of the attorney. And I know the council voted, and it was unanimous vote to direct you to do the letter. In your letter, well, first of all, did you do it? Okay, in your letter, did you state that it was a vote, a 5-0 vote?
Microphone.
Put your microphone, sir.
I don't recall mentioning that it was a 5-0 vote specifically. No, I
Okay, but you said some, but not all.
Yes, that's what I recall.
Yeah, that definitely should be changed to
I'll
all.
do that, sir.
Okay, question, what is the status of that, what's the status, where are we now?
We are waiting a response from them,
Okay,
whether or not they are going to accept our justifications for the request.
okay. And in your research, did you find that the city does have the right to make a request, and that they can, if they choose to, they can certainly oblige the city in changing attorneys, certainly if that's the will of the council, and certainly if that's the unanimous will of the council?
I'm not understanding the question, I'm sorry, sir.
You had said that you were going to research a matter as it relates to...
Research whether or not we could compel them to do it?
Not compel, but certainly we can ask.
Yes, we
and-
can ask, and we have.
And it does not present any kind of legal situations if they agree to do it.
No,
If they say,
absolutely
we
not.
will
They-
give
they
the
can
city what they
voluntarily
want.
do it. Yes, sir.
Okay, and we have asked that. You just
Yes,
have to
sir.
clarify the letter to say
Yes, sir.
unanimous. Okay, city manager. I'm going to ask you a couple questions. One is, was there a reason, because I'm in the dark on the issue why the crab pot was taken off the agenda or not put on for the night, because I was under the impression that would be a subject for tonight.
Madam Chair.
Madam Manager.
An email was sent to the mayor and city council earlier this afternoon. The developer has requested that the item be deleted. There were some other events that occurred. He received a letter from FDOT that needed to be addressed, so he requested that the item be deleted from the agenda.
Does that mean that it's going to come back in the near future? Or
Yes, sir, it will come back in the near future.
But did he give you any inclination as to how what that means, whether it's the next council meeting or down the road as the near future?
From what I understand, it would have to go back before the Planning and Zoning Board, and then it will come back to the city council.
Also, Madam Manager, the last special council meeting that the mayor called, as you know, there isn't any protocol for the mayor to call a special meeting. It's just a right that the charter gives the mayor, and there isn't any, and it's a matter of interpretation whether meetings are called by council members or the mayor, whether they're premature. That's a matter of opinion, but the people who call the meetings obviously don't think so, because they wouldn't call them. But my question is, and I've had some calls, I would like for you to clarify it. The mayor made a statement in the last special meeting that there was an experience, unfortunate experience for me, check that was written to me, my regular ordinary payroll check on Friday, went to the bank on Saturday, and we're talking about TD Bank, and they could not cash it. Can you explain, because I don't want people to think I'm making up something or it didn't happen. It did happen, as you know, because I called you on Saturday. And can you just, on the record, explain what happened for people to know that it wasn't anything deliberate or anything like that, and we can clarify this too.
You're not talking about this past
No, I'm not.
Saturday. You're talking about several months ago.
Several months
this
ago.
occurred. Yes, you called and said that, I believe, or the bank called and stated that there was not enough funds in the payroll account to process the check. However, when I spoke with finance staff, I believe there was a transfer that occurred from the wrong account. It should have come out of the central paying account and not the payroll account. So the transfer was from the wrong account, which caused the account to go in the negative.
Right, which caused them not to honor that check until I got in contact with you at the bank, and you were able to walk them through it, and they transferred and made it happen. I was so glad to get the check cash, and thank you for your intervention. The other thing, I got an email from you as it relates, I think, to the investigation of the, which just happened a week ago. Now, does that mean that the investigation has been completed?
That was my investigation. The internal auditor completed his investigation earlier this week, and I have that to pass out, so now it is complete.
Would you state on the record what was the results of the investigation as it relates to the payroll mishap on that Friday?
The results of the investigation revealed that an employee went back in the file after it was approved and opened the file, and which caused another approval of the ACH deposit transfer. So the employee opened the file, it was not modified. We verified from the source document to the document where it was paid that none of the amounts were edited or the bank account numbers were edited. So the file was not edited at all, but it was open, which caused the file to be required another approval.
So if my understanding, thank you, Madam Manager, is correct in trying to understand what happened, according to our own investigation, and the internal auditor was involved, and that's you, right? And that we discovered that an employee went into the file, although he did not change anything, as you said, but he did go in. My understanding is that once an employee go into the file, it has to be approved by a supervisor, approved by someone before anything can go forward. Is that correct with the deposit? Excuse me. Oh, I thought somebody was touching you or something. Go ahead.
The process is, Mr. Mayor, it requires 2 approvals. The first approval had occurred by employee number 1, and the second approval occurred by employee number 2. After he approved it, after employee number 2 approved the file, approximately 20 minutes later, employee number 2 went back in the file to look at it, edit it, or it was opened, which caused for another approval. And that has never occurred, and that second approval never occurred. So the file was there, although on Thursday, I believe employees called and said that the credit union had not posted to their bank accounts, which the credit union would normally post earlier than the regular banks. Finance went back in the file and saw that it said approved and went on that documentation thinking that the file would be processed, but it was not.
So at the end of the day, and I want to be very clear as you have been and specific, the final approval that was supposed to have come from the city never did come to the bank. Is that correct?
It's not final approval. It required another approval because the file was opened again.
Okay, so we won't use the word final, but let's say whatever that approval was or would have been, that never came from the city. So therefore, yes, thank you. So because it didn't come from the city, that helped the bank sort of just was waiting for that in order to do what they do with normal deposits and transactions. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Well, unfortunately, that this happened, but things happen, and I just wanted the public to understand what happened on our part. Final, Madam Chair, and this is it for me. I do agree with Mr. Adams and Dr. Botel, who said earlier that I think the city would be in a much better position, that and realize that we are somewhat in a situation, forget what the word terminology is in Congress, when you have a change of administration. And usually before you have a possible or new administration that could be coming in, things are kind of held until that time happens. I believe that for us to move on the appointment or the hiring of a city manager would be, it would have us in the same position. And we're looking at that now playing out on the national scene, that there's one party that's trying to get certain things done before the midterms, because they know, have a good reason to believe that in the midterm elections that people are going to go and they're going to vote a certain way, and it's not going to be the way that the sitting body is there trying to get things to happen before November. We see that already playing out on a national scene, and I think it would behoove us to look at that and see what that's causing. So on a national scene, so I believe that is in the best interest of this city, regardless of what others think, because everyone has a right to their opinion. And I know I'm in the minority with this opinion, but I feel that it would be in the best interest of this city to wait. We waited this long. Ms. Karen Hoskin has done a job as city manager. What's the rush? A few more months is going to create some type of impediment, situation, and you have an assistant. Mr. Horton has been working with you, so I would say to the residents, you should petition your government, petition, call, send emails to the elected officials, and let us know by a petition that you are asking this council to delay that vote and wait until the election. I think it's the right thing to do, and I'm on record. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilman Davis, you recognize?
I didn't raise my hand, let's grab the
No,
microphone.
comments. We're at comments.
He said he didn't raise his
Oh, you went near this way.
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. All right, thank you. I just want to say to everyone, we have some very important initiatives that are coming up on the ballot, and I'm sure that we will continue to have information out to talk about the amendments, especially when it comes to voter rights and things of that sort. So we're going to have the Amendment 1 that talks about the taxes and how that's going to impact our city's budget, and as we approach the mid-year budget review. There's a lot of things that's going to happen if Amendment 1 does pass. It's going to impact our budget tremendously. It's going to be very important that we have all staff on board, and even more staff to be prepared to make this adjustment if that's the case. But we must continue to work together and watch what's happening across the state of Florida and inform our residents across the entire city. I'd like to Walter to please put something up on. So here we have a flyer, and the purpose of this flyer was to, so many times we have folks that wait for a council meeting to come and get their issues heard and spoken to with the city manager. I thought we need to have another mechanism, another opportunity for folks to have a conversation. And it says here, do you have questions? Want to help your community? Change your neighborhood with your voice. Every second Tuesday of each month from 6:30 to 8 o'clock in the council chambers. So next Tuesday from 6:30 to 8 o'clock here in the council chambers, this would not be a televised meeting. This would be a time for you to come down, have an intimate one-on-one conversation with Councilman Davis, myself, and to talk about how can you help your city or whatever your concerns are. I know a lot of folks don't want to be on TV, but we will be here for an hour and a half just to hear your concerns and questions and get some of the things asked. That way you have to wait for a long meeting to go by through public comment and get to the end of the meeting to wait to hear the city manager give a report. We can sit down and get a lot of those things and those questions asked way before a council meeting in a more one-on-one intimate setting. So every second Tuesday of each month up until December from 6:30 to 8 o'clock here in the council chambers. So please do what you can to come with your questions, come with your concerns, with the focus of helping your community. Thank you.
Councilwoman Botel?
Thank you. Want to announce that we will have our quarterly Singer Island Town Hall on October 18th at 6 o'clock in the Ambassador Center. I'm happy to say that they'll have a presentation by Ms. Cobb, librarian, and by Mr. Blankenship about Parks and Recreation. And we'll also have Scott Evans there to tell us the status of the community garden. We're very excited about that. Also wanted to let you know that the Marine Industry Workforce Development Task Force that I reported on earlier is having great success, continues to make progress. Since our last meeting, we've been approached to participate in a multi-million-dollar grant opportunity with Palm Beach State College to renovate the former Maritime Academy site, now known as the Judge Rogers Community Development Center. So we've got to stop calling it the Maritime Academy site. I'm calling it the Rogers Center. Alfred Fields is going to be having a mid-November job fair for the marine industry over at that site, so I'm excited to be working with him on that project. The good response, the excellent response to this Marine Task Force has prompted us to expand into other areas. So we'll be working with industries such as construction, hospitality, banking, and many more in tailoring workforce development projects to meet their needs as well. So really excited about the things that are going on in that regard. And I had a question for City Manager. I wondered if the RFP had gone out yet. We've talked about it now for a couple of months and wondered if that had gone out, the one I mean.
Madam Chair,
Madam Manager.
and you're talking about the RFP for the additional assistance for the
Yes.
city manager. So I have that here and I've asked the council to give their feedback on this, and I think I've heard from you, and that's it. So I'm
It's
gonna
been
pass
2
this.
months.
Yeah, I'm gonna pass this down again for them to give me their feedback.
Are we going to
And
wait
then we
another
can,
2 months? Or? I don't mean to be sarcastic, I'm sorry.
2, 3, 4.
Here's another one.
Madam Chair, can I ask a question about this?
Sure, you recognize Councilwoman Miller Anderson?
So this is the RFP to provide additional assistance to Ms. Hoskins. So I think when we discussed this, I was somewhat on board with it. I'm not sure at what point this came with Mr. Horton then coming into play. But, obviously, everyone knows where I stand with Mr. Horton being on this side, because I think he needs to be at the utility district. But I just see this as now we're going to provide an additional person when we have a city manager. And I know sometimes in different places, the media, different places are referring to Ms. Hoskins as the interim city manager. She's not the interim. She is the city manager. She's being paid as the city manager. And then also she has the assistance of Mr. Horton, who is doing half and half with the utility district. And it's almost like providing on-the-job training, unless I'm for her, and we're gonna pay someone else in addition to her already doing the job, or supposed to be doing the job and 100%. And then also Mr. Horton is there as well. So I'm just trying to find out now, are we gonna now pull Mr. Horton away? How, because I just think that's a lot of guidance and a lot of human resources in one area. So, I would be in favor of it if we're saying that we're taking Mr. Horton and putting him back to the utility district. But I just see that's a whole lot of hand holding, for lack of a better word.
Madam Chair.
Councilwoman Botel, you
I
recognize.
think the purpose of this is really to do an assessment rather than hand-holding. I don't see it necessarily as help for the city manager, but rather an assessment of the organizational structure, taking a look at the systems we have in place, taking a look at the staff that we have. Do we need all the staff that we have? Are they well placed? Are they well managed? Are they, doing the right kind of job? So it's really an analysis more than hand-holding or giving assistance. It's really taking a look at the structure and systems.
Thank you.
Chair Pro Tem, you recognize.
I think with us having a HR director coming in, if we have an RFP out for an HR director, and I think that with a seasoned HR director and the HR staff that we have there, a good HR director should be able to do a lot of the things that are here as well. And so we have a manager RFP out on the street. We have an attorney and an HR director. And I think from those three bodies and those three salaries, we should be well within our way to have these things addressed here. And another layer of supervision is going to, I think, clog down the process and stop the process until you get to the point is who's reporting to who, who's in charge of what. With a seasoned HR director, I think we would well get what we need from the outline that has been presented here.
Madam Chair,
Councilwoman Botel, you recognize.
we voted on this months ago, and it's more than an HR process. This addresses technological resources, this addresses disciplinary and supervision practices, which I will admit are HR, but it also addresses a number of other organizational structures that are above and beyond HR. I think that we need to have professional help to come in and take a look at our systems and structures and help us make determinations about the way we do business. And we've talked about this, we decided it was a good thing to do, and because we've dragged this on for so long now, we're having second thoughts. I just think this is something that we need to do and do now.
Madam Chair,
Councilman Davis, you recognize.
thank you. Yes, we all did vote upon this. I do believe that what Councilperson Hubbard is stating, as far as having an HR director present, will assist. But I do understand that once we have a permanent city manager, HR director, all the items that are put and broken out here, these will be some of the things that they will be using to bring in through an assessment. So these tools are definitely, a lot of the ones I do see are definitely needed, but we cannot do it without a HR director and a permanent city manager, because these will be a lot of the same things they will be requesting as they transition into a new city. Trying to get some historical information, and with some of this, we look at retention plans, recruitment plans, surveying, succession plans, technological resources. That's something that HR would definitely be asking for as well. I think they'd probably be putting a lot of the same information on this document and probably be using the same RFP to go out on the street. So I do believe that we do need to continue with this. But it's just as important to bring in the HR director to use this assessment with the city manager so that they can work together as a team, because there's no one individual from HR is going to be able to do this without the city manager. There's no way that this can take place without the two people two departments working together, because once they come together, they're going to have to meet with all their department heads in the city and make sure that everyone is on one accord when they bring in whatever consultant that we bring in to assist with that process.
Madam Chair.
Councilwoman Miller Anderson, you recognize.
With Councilwoman Botel explaining it a little more, I am in support of it as I was back then, but I have a better reason for it at this point now, because, since we over the last few months, probably since we last voted on this, we've had some issues or concerns, or at least I have, with HR. And as you know, we've had some issues with our technology, so I do think it's important to bring a third party in who can come in with a fresh set of eyes, and not coming from the inside and adding their perspective on it, someone that would be unbiased and provide us a clear understanding of what our systems look like. So I do support it, but like I said, if it is going to border on giving additional assistance, that part I'm not in favor of, but coming in to assess our systems, which plenty of them appear to be broken, and I believe the issues that we've had over the last few months expresses the fact that we do have some issues and systems that are broken. We do need to have someone take a look at it and see how we can do better business here in the city. Thank you.
Thank you. I will review the document as has been presented and provide my comments by close of business Friday. Does that conclude your comments, Councilwoman Botel?
Yes, thank you.
Councilwoman Miller Anderson, recognized.
The only comment I have is that the Citizen Leadership Academy will be starting the second week of November. The applications will be available next week in the City Hall chambers, and I'll also try to put some at the Parks and Recreation Center and in the Youth Empowerment. You know, I actually try to put them in different locations so that people can apply for it. Last year, we had one adult class, which we were going to service close to 25 people, a cap of 25 people, and one child group for up to 20 people. Depending on the numbers, if we can have 2 groups of 25, that would be great if we get to that, but that would be the cutoff. So hopefully we're able to accept as many people. I know a lot of people were interested in it after we finished our class the last time. So please be on the lookout for that application and the sign-up time for next week. Thank you.
Chair Pro Tem, you recognize.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I want to say thank you to all of the participants who attended the corporate prayer breakfast, Binding the Violence, that was held in the chamber on Wednesday, September 26th. I want to thank the mayor for having the leadership in the first prayer breakfast after the violence and appointing me to continue to host this community corporate prayer breakfast. It was well attended, and I think it was much needed, and the people that came participated. Also, to the residents of National Village and Timber Pine, I want to thank you for showing up to your community national night out. Your concerns and suggestions were heard and are being addressed. I also want to thank everybody that helped make that a success. The police department, Parks and Recreation, and the volunteers that came out to help serve the residents there in National Village. As you know, in National Village, we had several shootings, and we wanted to go out and to hear the concerns of the residents there and their suggestions. Of course, we know what their some of their concerns were, but we wanted them to know that we are here and that we are interested in what they want. One of the things, Madam Manager, if you could get with staff and maybe they could find out about who would be in charge of the lighting up and down the streets there, because it's very dark over there, and several of the residents wanted to have more lighting in that particular neighborhood. Also, we are trying to get to the younger boys that are there from 8 to 18. They've seen a lot of violence, and we want to deter them and let them know that that is not common practice, and that should not be the norm. So what we're going to be offering in conjunction with the police department is Boys to Men character building, where the boys will discuss several topics, field trips, be introduced to different activities. We have, we've had a lot of flack about the standardized testing and assistance for our kids, but we're still going to go forward with helping though that particular group at this time, and we'll move to other groups to help them in the tutoring, the standardized testing, and helping our kids where they need help. Where we find them, that's where we should start addressing them. So what we are going to do is start with the young men, 8 to 18, in Timber Run and National Village. So what we need the parents buy-in. Most of all, we need the parents buy-in. We'll be going door to door, soliciting the parents' participation and having them sign their youth up. So I would like to have the parents that are listening know that if they are interested, they can call 866-457-1203 to sign up. But people will be coming door to door, giving you information, asking you if this is something that you would like to have your son participate in. They will be discussing building self-esteem and self-respect, a flight through the African American history and culture, critical thinking skills, examining the impact of today's television, music, and movies and the media on their lives. So those are a few of the topics that are going to be discussed with the young men, and we hope that they will take advantage of that, and we will provide some positive outlets for the young men in our community and catch them at an early age. Also, and lastly, I've started to put together an economic equity work group to talk with different people, procurement officers in the field, and how they have addressed local participation, if you will, an equitable distribution of the resources and the jobs and the business opportunities that have come to their community prior to them having a diversity study done. Because what concerned me most of all was the fact that a couple things have taken place. We just put out $20 million in road work, and none of that went to local people. That concerned me because digging holes and laying pipes and stuff like that, local people should be able to get a piece of that. $20 million. We cannot continue to do business in that manner and expect a community to grow and stabilize. So that's an ordinance we have in our books, 4010. In Section 3, there's a section that allows us to build on that, and that's what this economic equity work group is about, so that we can bring it back to the council. Wonderful. And put it in place so that our local contractors, business people, professional services, I mean, it doesn't have to just be construction, doing business in the city with us and for us, because we are paying for this. So I think we should get a piece of the pie. So I'm very excited about that, and I think the community will appreciate it, and I look forward to community participation and buy-in, as well as from my colleagues for this endeavor. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. I would like to make you aware that the International Coastal Cleanup has been scheduled for Saturday, October 6th at Sadie McCray Park. This is being sponsored by the Southside Coalition and Concerned Mothers. We will be there from 7:30 a.m. until 1:30 p.m. You will be available to get your community service hours, and I do believe that refreshments will be made available to you. So if you have time on Saturday, October 6th from 7:30 a.m. until 1:30, please join us at the Sadie McCray Park.
Where's it located?
Pardon me?
Can you tell them where it's located?
I don't have the address here, Mr. Mayor. It's on between Avenue G and I believe 4th Street, between 4th and 5th. Right. But we'll give you the direct address, Sadie McCray Park. I would like to ask my colleagues to join me in supporting a proclamation for Mediation Week. We got the information, and we would like to just read the information into the record really quickly. Mediation Week is scheduled for October 14th through October 20th. We won't have another opportunity to gather. Seddy McCray Park is located at 594 West 4th Street. Mediation Week, again, as I was saying, is October 14th through October 20th. And whereas the Palm Beach County Bar Association, I'd like to read this into our record so that we can prepare a proclamation to be presented to Mr. Lawrence Gordon and the Palm Beach County Bar Association. Whereas the Palm Beach County Bar Association's Alternative Dispute Resolution Committee seeks to promote to lawyers, the judiciary, and the public the use and value of alternative dispute resolution processes. These processes help parties resolve disputes without a trial in a less costly and more timely and satisfying manner. Whereas in 2011, the American Bar Association declared the third week of October as Mediation Week to recognize the utilization of mediation as one of several appropriate dispute resolution processes, and whereas mediators and other dispute resolution practitioners, through their concentrated expertise in helping parties find lasting solutions to complex problems, have continually demonstrated the value of the field of alternative dispute resolution, and whereas mediation practices and skills are being applied in the workplace by leaders, managers, and supervisors who have embraced the power of efficiency, of open communication, and collaborative problem solving, and whereas mediation, along with the principles and practices that it embodies, can be a crucial tool for peacemaking between individuals, groups, units, neighborhoods, as well as governments, and our region continue to be a leader in those efforts, and whereas professional associations of conflict resolvers are promoting the peaceful and creative resolution of disputes, and whereas the City of Riviera Beach extends its appreciation to the members of the Palm Beach County Bar Association, and especially to the members of the Alternative Dispute Resolution Committee for its efforts to promote alternative conflict resolutions throughout Palm Beach County. Now, therefore, I, Tanya Davis Johnson, on behalf of the City of Riviera Beach City Council and Mayor, do hereby proclaim October 14, 2018 through October 20th, 2018 as a week of celebration in honor of Mediation Week, and that the City of Riviera Beach recognizes the importance of the availability of alternative disputes resolution services to the citizens of our community. So we would like to have that signed and backed by the council so that we can present that to the Palm Beach County Bar Association.
Madam Chair, I have a question about the proclamation.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, thank you. In the past, proclamations of all sorts, usually the mayor, the office of the mayor, is the person that proclaims. That has been my knowledge since I've been mayor, and I certainly would, I mean, I don't have a problem with you doing it, and I would certainly join you in that, but I just want to put it on the record.
Thank you, sir. I would like to get an update on where we are with the forensic audit, if information about that is available. Madam Manager.
Madam Chair, the RFP is posted and on the city's website and through Demand Star. I'm not sure of the closing date. I'll call Mr. Ricky Littles up to provide the closing date, the RFP.
Good evening, Council. Ricky Lowell, Interim Director of Procurement. The closing date for that RFP is October the 24th.
October 24th. Thank you. I would like to take this time on behalf of the Palm Beach Partners to thank the City of Riviera Beach for its participation in the 2018 Palm Beach Partners Business Matchmaker Conference and Expo. The conference was held September 21st at the Kravis Center, and the City of Riviera Beach was a part of a contingency that served to provide access and opportunity to information regarding solicitations and its opportunity to do business. So on behalf of the Palm Beach Partners, I would like to thank the City of Riviera Beach for its partnership and its continued support of the Business Matchmaking Conference and Expo. And with that, my comments are concluded. Seeing that there is no further business, we stand adjourned.